G'day chaps, 'tis I, Clownpuncher139. Despite being the most famous game for interview tapes, Arkham Asylum doesn't really reveal anything interesting through them. They're more just character dumps that let the actors go off all they want. There's a few things I could maybe talk about, but there's not really enough to make an interesting video out of it. So instead, I'm skipping to a game with slightly more interesting tapes, Arkham City. Arkham City's tapes reveal a decent amount about what's going on in the background of the story, as I've revealed in a few videos in the past. So, let's go through everything that you've probably missed through the tapes, and I'll explain them to the best of my ability. Once again, if you haven't heard the tapes in a while, check out this video compilation of all the tapes to get caught up. With all that said, let's get started. We start our journey with the coolest customer of the group, Mr. Freeze. Now, since there are a lot more tapes to go through, I'm not going to give a long-winded breakdown of each one like I did with Arkham Origins. Instead, I'll just give the important details. The first tape is pretty simple, it's just Freeze and Strange meeting one another. Strange just wants to look into Victor's psyche, Victor just wants to leave.
Discover how you came to have such a frosty outlook on life.
I have nothing to say to you.
Even without his ice gun, his suit is still more than capable of causing harm, as we who fight him on New Game Plus know very well.
I will freeze the marrow in your legs. Each bone will shatter and fracture while you remain completely aware of your impending paralysis, begging me to end you.
But Strange has an ace up his sleeve. If he's brought down, Nora's gonna die too. This gets Victor's attention and cooperation, and he starts relaying information to Strange. It seems that even in his childhood he was trying to do good, but went about it in the wrong way. He wondered why pets needed to die when they could have done more to save them, no doubt something many of us have wondered ourselves. It shows his interest in cryonics even at a young age, though also shows he was indeed disturbed. Let's not forget, despite being the most compassionate villain in Batman's roster, Mr. Freeze is still a very disturbed man.
They did not understand my work.
Your work? According to a police report, you froze over a dozen of your neighbor's pets.
Serial killers often start with harming animals at young ages, just as Freeze started his research on neighborhood pets as a child. It's a subtle way of showing us that he is just as messed up as the rest of the Rogues Gallery. Tapes 3 and 4 are really just a rundown of his backstory a la Cold Cold Heart. You all know the details, I'm sure, so there's really nothing to say here except for Strange's perfect response to this question.
Do you know what it is to love someone? To really love them?
No.
That delivery is just gold.
No.
I've listened to this tape so many times, and it's just perfect.
No.
Please, make this a meme, people, please. I know you have the power in you.
No.
Tape 5 starts with some interesting characterization for Freeze, as he gives us a different perspective than what we saw at the end of Cold Cold Heart. Rather than being grateful for bringing Boyle to justice, he now despises Batman for keeping him from death. So, rather than being the allies we know them as, this shows that Freeze's line when we first meet him in Arkham City reigns true. He and Batman are not friends.
Don't let this situation fool you. We are not friends.
This also implies that the original intent for the story was to have Freeze's story take place not as far back as Arkham Origins. Victor speaks like most of this was a recent event, and he's been building up a resentment for Batman for keeping him from Boyle. While it doesn't necessarily contradict Cold Cold Heart, it doesn't perfectly line up with it either. And yes, I know Cold Cold Heart came later, it doesn't matter, the point still stands.
I attacked him. His guards beat me back, and in the struggle, I was drenched by the cryogenic chemical I had created. I lay on the floor, helpless, watching the guards steal Nora away. Boyle told me it was a tragedy for such a promising mind to perish in a lab accident. Then he left me to die.
Regardless, after finishing his tale, Strange gives Victor his psychological breakdown. And the first time I heard it, I thought he was right on the money.
See? There you go. Blame me, blame your parents because you failed to revive the neighbor's pets. Blame Ferris Boyle for spoiling your plans to cure Nora. Blame Batman for stopping your revenge against Boyle.
But upon listening to it more closely, I've come to realize how wrong Strange is here.
And now, your Nora is in danger.
Because of you.
No, Victor. Because of you. You have always had a heart of ice.
He's right that Victor has always had a heart of ice. He did steal away people's pets at a young age. He did steal GothCorp resources to save Nora. And he has gone on a selfish crime spree in hopes of saving Nora. But then Strange goes in the completely wrong direction. He almost seems to be blaming Freeze for committing to his life of crime when it ultimately wasn't his decision.
If you had shared your genius with others, devoted your energy to medicine instead of crime, perhaps your ice princess would be at home now.
He was dedicating his life to medicine for years at GothCorp, but Boyle forced his hand and reduced him to the shell of a man he is in this suit. He worked tirelessly for years trying to find a cure for Nora, while also working full-time at GothCorp, and it was Boyle who forced him into this lifestyle. There is no reality where Freeze and Nora are living a happy life right now instead of being in the suit, and her being on ice. Boyle nearly killed Victor, and there was nothing Freeze could have done differently to both have Nora and be out of the suit. So Strange is just wrong. The tape ends with Strange telling Freeze that Nora is currently in Joker's hands, explaining how the clown's crew got her by the time we get to the main story. And that's about it.
You could have saved Nora a long time ago, Victor.
It's all for her. Everything. I will get her back. And when I do, I'm coming for you.
Thank you. We are done now.
Nora.
So let's move on to our next contender, the Penguin. We don't get too much from his first tape, aside from how funny he finds the Wayne's death to be.
I think it's bloody hysterical. That family destroyed mine. What happened to them? Well, it couldn't have happened to nicer people.
But one really interesting thing we learn later is that he wasn't just locked up in Arkham City like everyone else. He seems to have come here willingly. Kinda. Arkham City was planned to be built around the museum/Iceberg Lounge, which he owned prior to the events of the game. Rather than evacuating and handing the museum over when given the chance, he stayed right where he was and accepted the prison being built around him.
I was here first. I bought my museum in the Iceberg Lounge fair and square. It was you and that mayor who stuck us all together.
Strange even relays that Cobblepot was given the option to leave multiple times, but Oswald stood his ground and never left.
I believe we gave you the opportunity to leave.
And take over my turf. Never.
He's very insistent on standing his ground and never leaving the museum, which is pretty interesting when we consider what happens toward the end of the game. During the climb up Wonder Tower, Strange specifically calls out for a strike against the museum, saying,
Refocus your attacks on the museum. I want Cobblepot's fortress leveled.
Implying he wants Cobblepot to either die or watch his entire empire collapse in front of him when he refused to leave. Either way, suffering the consequences of staying behind. Which is doubly interesting when we consider what we learn in a few later tapes. Cobblepot is kinda Strange's cleanup crew. In exchange for weapons and other goods, Penguin disposes of bodies, most likely from Strange's various experiments. In all likelihood, all it means is that he and his crew throw them in Tiny's tank to be nommed on for lunch. But it is interesting that Strange would so casually betray a very valuable asset like Penguin.
I have no idea what you are talking about.
Of course not.
They have a good working relationship going and seem to be on better terms than the rest of the villains. But I guess it goes to show Strange's dedication to the pursuit of science. In his own words,
Arkham City is an experiment, Mr. Cobblepot. A new way of thinking. We've separated you from society, so I am more than willing to study the results if you all just decide to kill each other.
So getting all the results he can would indeed be worth it. All throughout this, Strange keeps trying to get a read on Penguin to understand what's going on with him like the other villains. But Penguin just keeps shutting him down. He isn't treating Arkham City like a prison like the rest of the criminals. He's treating it like a business exchange. He's getting everything he can out of Strange without giving him an inch.
Are you familiar with the term Napoleon complex?
No. What is it?
It's nothing.
Strange certainly sounds like he's getting information from this, but I don't really think he is. Penguin is just a really greedy businessman. He's not insane like all the others are, or at the very least isn't on the same level of insanity as the rest. He doesn't have any problems with death, but that doesn't mean he's insane. It just means he's really far down the rabbit hole of money. Take that however you want, politically or otherwise, I'm moving on.
Let us move on, then.
No. It's time that you do something for me.
And what is that?
Here's a list.
And of course, as many of us know, this tape also reveals how Penguin got his hands on Freeze and how he knew of the undercover cops working for him. Freeze was in Strange's custody just before the events of the game, and was turned over to Penguin to keep him from making Joker's cure. Seeing as Joker and Penguin have a turf war going on, Strange taking advantage of that to spur the war on just makes sense. It solidifies his reasoning for activating Protocol 10 and heightens the chances of Joker dying. And the cops were exposed because, quote,
I don't like being spied on, Mr. Cobblepot. Good night.
As I say again and again, Strange is behind everything. Just take the smallest moment to look for it and you'll find an explanation in this game. As per usual with these tapes, we don't get much from Penguin himself because there's nothing to really get with him. He's just a businessman, doing business.
He took my eye. I took both of his. Left him trying to walk across the Gotham freeway in rush hour. Hilarious.
So let's move on to his best frenemy, Two-Face. We start with the usual introductions and Harvey not wanting to talk, who would have guessed. He naturally flips the coin, but it comes up bad. No answers for Strange today.
Came up bad. Sorry.
Not a problem. Guard, take Mr. Dent's coin off of him.
No!
Good.
Without his coin, Harvey is pretty much powerless.
Give me my coin.
We see him putting up no resistance to answering Strange's questions now. The coin told him to. And can I just take a moment to praise Troy Baker for his seriously underrated and underused performance as Two-Face? He's only done it in 2 games and barely appears in either of them, but he does such a damn good job.
You can leave him out of this. He's wrong. They all are. No one understands the beauty of fate's hand. I'm grateful to Falcone.
He's able to effortlessly swap between good and bad Harvey pretty much on a whim, like Two-Face would absolutely do.
Leave us. We don't want to talk. Not to you.
Two-Face himself is such an interesting character, so seeing him get sidelined in literally everything except The Dark Knight really sucks. If you know of a good Two-Face movie or episode of the animated series, please let me know in the comments because I really want to watch it. But I'm getting sidetracked, back to the tape.
How could I not?
We see Strange play a weird psychological trick on Harvey. After taking the coin, Strange actually replaced it with his own. In essence, he cheated Harvey into answering his questions.
Fate didn't make you answer my question. I did. I replaced your coin with my own. See? You answered me because I wanted you to.
This kind of breaks Harvey's mind. He's left with the fake coins to ponder for days, and his brain just can't handle it. He's so used to the simple binary of his coin that introducing all these variables pretty much makes him shut down.
I don't know. I can't decide. It's too confusing.
He's a stuttering mess who can't even make choices on his own because he's always relied on the coin to do it for him. When Strange finally offers it back, he proposes a theory like he did to Victor.
You believe that this coin determines the fate of your world. I, however, believe that your condition has always been present. It was there before you were attacked, and it is still there now.
And unlike his idea for Freeze, he's actually kinda right with Harvey. His Two-Face persona was always there. He was always aggressive one moment only to be calm and collected the next. So he proposes attempting to cure Harvey, bring him back to the man he used to be before all the flipping and killing. But to do so, Harvey has to make his own choice. He can catch the coin and go back to Arkham City, or let it drop and attempt to be rehabilitated.
I can't decide.
You have to.
While Strange said he wants to help Harvey, I think that's a lie. I have a feeling he knew Harvey would catch the coin, regardless of what information he claimed to have. Harvey just needs his coin, so telling him to take it, regardless of what the offer is, will result in that coin being caught. Also, yes, this is how Dent catches Catwoman in her prologue section, but it really doesn't matter, so whatever. In the end, this tape isn't too revealing about Harvey as a character, or really even giving us any lore dumps. It's more just a chance to get more of Two-Face that we didn't get in the main game. Honestly, that's fine, because like I said, Troy Baker's performance is really underrated here.
At this moment, Catwoman is preparing to steal the contents of the safe in your old campaign office.
Bitch, we need to stop her.
And you may. Goodbye, Mr. Dent.
Hello? Anyone in there?
Time for the one and only Joker, in obviously the best tapes we have on selection. I mean, it's easily the two best actors in this game going back and forth in increasingly demented conversations. What's not to love?
Give me 20 minutes and a can opener, and I'll have you whimpering like a schoolgirl. You might like it.
The first tape is just Joker being Joker and Strange trying to get into his head. He offers a deal though. Joker gets the help he needs, Strange gets to pry at his psyche. Fair enough deal, I think.
I don't have long, Doc. You're going to need more than some psycho mumbo-jumbo to get to the bottom of what's wrong with me.
Well, Strange ends up sending multiple doctors to try helping Joker, but Joker always ends up killing them. He's already killed 3 by the time we get to this tape, and now we get his great backstory of the game.
Is that all? Well, I guess you could say I once had a very bad day.
It's obviously a big Killing Joke reference, and probably the 3rd backstory we've gotten in the saga by this point. He continues in the next tape, but not after confirming he killed 3 more doctors. More Killing Joke stuff, and withholding information behind another doctor. Tape 4, though, is the conclusion of the story.
Have you ever tried to walk with an enormous fishbowl on your head? Don't answer that.
While very funny, there isn't anything else to hear about, unfortunately. All the important story stuff comes from tape 5. First we hear the conclusion of the story, followed by Strange's analysis. Because this is the 12th version of the story he's heard. Joker throws whatever cobbled up origin story he wants whenever someone asks because he really doesn't care what they think about him.
What can I say? I like to keep things interesting. A wise man once told me that if you have to have an origin story, you're better off making it multiple choice.
Strange tries to understand why he would fabricate so many origin stories with the only through line being Batman. We know that the Ace story is true, since we somewhat play out the events in Arkham Origins. What we don't know is if Batman was actually connected or not. Joker is of course an unreliable narrator, so he could have just thrown Batman into these stories because of his obsession with the detective, regardless of if he was there. Ultimately, it doesn't matter though.
Come again?
Joker's origin story will always remain a mystery, to us the audience as well as the characters of the universe. That's just how he works, and there's no changing it regardless of how much Strange tries to push him. The tape ends with Joker having the upper hand on Strange because he's got some blackmail. Strange was essentially stalking Joker back in the asylum because he wanted to be the one studying him, but he never could because Joker was assigned to Dr. Young. So instead of that, Strange went ahead and pulled some mind control on Sharp, which we'll get more in depth on a later tape. Joker knows about this.
Nice work, by the way. Thank you.
And says that if Strange wants that information on the down low, he should stop trying to get in his head.
Oh, and send me another Doc. I think I need a second opinion.
Once again, as expected, the tapes aren't too revealing about Joker either, aside from how he got so many doctors. But it's still very nice hearing Mark Hamill narrate the events of The Killing Joke outside the movie, and hearing him go back and forth with Strange is pretty funny, as you'd expect. Honestly, just listen to the tapes for that, don't even worry about the lore stuff. Mark Hamill is just great.
Okay, Professor, I'll give you a little more. I just hope you're taking notes.
Next up, we have Catwoman, yet another case of great actors just going at it. It naturally starts without much in the way of story, just verbal evidence that Selina has been trying to break into Strange's secure locations for some time, and the threat that escaping Arkham City is impossible.
A girl loves a challenge.
So do I.
We get more back and forth, including a fantastic line jabbing at approximately 90% of my viewing audience right now.
I can see. My eyes are up here, by the way.
And then Strange pulls his worst mistake yet.
And Holly, what would you do if I sent my men after her?
To quote Wikipedia, because I myself don't really know much about her, Holly Robinson is a frequent ally and sidekick of Catwoman. She was trained by Wildcat and her friend Selina, and temporarily became the new Catwoman. So from my very limited understanding, it seems Holly is essentially a younger sister figure to Selina. Selina saved her from the streets and now takes care of her. I was expecting to find that they were in a relationship, but that doesn't seem to be the case. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, do correct me, but please don't be a dick about it.
Touch her and you're dead.
Tape 3 is a constant back and forth where Strange uses Holly's life as leverage to get Catwoman to talk. He tries taking a bit of information, but she snaps back and gives him nothing. So, of course, he retaliates by threatening Holly's life, so she submits. It's a cruel game, but one that certainly works to get Selina talking. Tape 4 actually has her playing along with the conversation, which shifts from one about her to one about Batman. He ends up comparing the two and, well, he's not wrong, but he's not really making a point with it either. He notes their disregard for the law and sense of self-righteousness, along with the mere fact that they both dress in black. But, like, aside from the black attire, that can be said of basically everyone in this super prison. Other than, like, the basic goons, everyone thinks they're doing what is right, despite going against the law. In the end, gotta agree with Selina on this one, Strange.
You don't know anything about him.
But then again, neither does she. Tape 5 is just a wrap-up. Holly is left safe unless she somehow finds her way inside Arkham City. Chances are he didn't even have sights on her to begin with. He's good enough at bluffing to make it believable, so it wouldn't be too absurd. Strange gloats to Catwoman a bit that he's going to win, further emphasizing how sure of himself he is, but Selina isn't buying it.
Yeah, whatever.
It ends rather interestingly with the fact that Strange told Catwoman about the safe in Two-Face's office. So not only did he reveal to Harvey that Selina was breaking in, he's the reason she was going after it in the first place. Another brilliant conduction of events by the mastermind that is Hugo Strange. Again, not too much to talk about here, but it's really just admiring the great performances of these actors going back and forth.
What? Look, he's spoken for. He must be. How else could he resist all this?
Next up is everyone's favorite punching bag, the Riddler. After everything he's put us through, what interesting details will he give us about Strange or himself? Well, we start with further proof of Sharp's brainwashing. Strange is just talking with him at first, but eventually just casually commands him into submission.
It is late, Mr. Mayor. You are tired. You need your sleep.
Of course, I need my sleep.
You will hang up now.
I will hang up now.
Imbecile.
Once again showing just how much influence Strange had over Sharp the whole time. He had absolutely no control over Arkham City. It was all Strange. This leads to Riddler popping into the conversation, casually hacking his communications to do so. It finishes with Strange reading Riddler's file and Enigma naturally giving him a nonsensical riddle.
Good, then let's get started. How do you attempt to understand what is going on in Arkham City when all of the answers are strange?
Tape 2 is essentially Riddler doing to Strange what he's been doing to everyone else throughout the rest of these tapes, extorting him into getting what he wants. He knows about Sharp's current hypnotic state, how Hugo used to take all the most disposable patients back at the Arkham for his experiments, and how he has a batsuit secretly hidden in his office. If Riddler knows all this, how much do you think everyone else knows? Well, there's one thing Strange knows that Edward doesn't.
You see, like me, you are obsessed with the Batman. But unlike me, you don't know who he really is, do you?
What?
Naturally, Strange knows who Batman is while Riddler doesn't, and he uses this information as the equivalent of dangling a treat right in front of a dog's nose.
Well, who is he?
But that would spoil the game for you, wouldn't it?
It's so much fun seeing Strange toy with Riddler after what was probably weeks of annoyance from his calls. Riddler just trying to grasp at straws, but Strange isn't giving him an inch, throwing his own words back at him before also throwing a riddle at him.
Tell me, Edward, how is the Riddler like a blank dictionary? You're both at a loss for words.
It is glorious to see, even if it doesn't add too much, story-wise. And actually, yeah, that's also surprisingly it for Riddler. For some reason, he only has 4 tapes while everyone else has 5. Weird, but whatever.
Really, Edward? If I could figure it out, it must be child's play for you.
But I...
For our final tapes, we actually go to Mad Hatter of all characters. Despite only being in a single, really quick side mission, he actually has some of the most interesting tapes when it comes to the lore of this game. Because unlike all the other tapes, Hatters don't take place in Arkham City. They actually take place years ago back in the Asylum. We start with the fact that Strange was interviewing him using the same general script as the rest of the Asylum tapes. So this was back when he was a doctor at the Asylum.
Patient interview 1. Subject's name, Jervis Tetch, aka the Mad Hatter.
He uses Jervis's obsession with Alice to get him talking, but in the end, Jervis doesn't give him much to work with. No matter how much he starts talking, he always loops the conversation back around to Alice. Strange stands his ground though, and eventually knows how he used some of his formula for mind control. But Strange is rather unrefined. He isn't able to wield the same power over it like Tetch does, which is why he needs his help.
Well, how did you get it? Did Alice give it to you? Wicked girl. Nasty little thing. Is she here yet?
Soon, Jervis, soon.
He shows Hatter pictures of his first victim, a girl dressed as Alice that he murdered some time ago. Jervis can't really process that information and keeps uttering to himself that Alice is fine. This is more or less what Hugo uses to break Jervis and convince him that they can work together. He pretty much breaks all the Asylum's rules and gets Tetch everything he needs to start working on a more refined solution for mind control.
I cannot do it without rabbits. I need rabbits for my research, and tea,
And Alice, I know.
Strange gets him everything he needs to start working, including the aforementioned test subjects that nobody would miss. He eventually makes a serum that exceeded Strange's expectations to the point that he's ready to start using it on Sharp. He tells Jervis to go invite Sharp to their tea party, but Jervis initially refuses.
To join our tea party?
Exactly.
I don't want to.
He cooperates though when Strange gives him a new Alice. So not only do all these tapes tell us how Strange was able to hypnotize Sharp, it tells us who was helping him all along and how far back it went. These tapes are before Arkham City was even planned, meaning they're long before the events of Arkham Asylum, which means that Sharp was hypnotized way before the events of that game and probably influenced him into doing the Spirit of Arkham stuff. And what I just love about these tapes is just how well Strange plays along with Jervis's antics. He's completely straight-faced and serious in all the others, taking no BS from anybody. But with Jervis, he just plays along with all his weird sayings and metaphors because he needs his skills. It's honestly a lot of fun.
You must keep it a secret. Can you keep a secret, Jervis?
With enough hats, I can stop people remembering secrets. Does that count?
It will have to.
And that will just about do it, chaps. Thanks for watching. While I love Arkham City's tapes as a whole, they don't add as much to the lore as the Origins extortion files. At most, they give a brief explanation for what Strange was doing in the background and how certain events of the game unfolded the way they did. Which is nice, but doesn't really give the big lore information I really liked from the Origins files. It's really just Corey Burton flexing his amazing Hugo Strange voice for half an hour. But yeah, I can't really complain about that.
How does it feel, Wayne, to stand on the very stones that ran with your parents' blood?
Dude has one of the best voices ever made. There's a reason he's been playing Count Dooku for the last 15 years. With all that said, do all the YouTube stuff because I'm really running out of clever ways to say this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later, chaps.
Strange!
Your part in this is over, Professor Strange.
Why? I did everything you wanted.
Indeed.